Welcome to the Natural History Cupboard. Come on in.
And welcome back to the Natural History Cupboard podcast, the place where the weird and wonderful parts of the natural world come together. I'm your host, Gareth, and with me, as always, is my co-host, Aaron. Aaron,
hello there.
Say hi.
Oh, I was in there before.
You're boom, straight in there. What have you been up to?
Not a great deal this week. I've my van has been out of action still.
I'll say it's not even there.
The mechanic's got it. But what I've been doing in my spare time, really, since I can't really use it to go out anywhere, it's just been working in the back of it. So just been doing a bit of the kind of the framework on the inside and a bit of sound deadening insulation.
Nice.
Yeah. So progress, even though I couldn't go out and do anything. What I have been doing is, because it's been quite good weather, is just been sitting out in the garden with the Merlin bird app.
Oh, yeah.
Birds. And I got a willow warbler, which is
Nice.
a rare bird.
Yeah.
So yeah, I was dead chuffed about that. Still not seen any fish down the local river though, so what about you?
Well, leaving here last week, wildlife-wise, I have been preparing myself for the day or the evening or night when I would come face to face driving home along those country lanes that get me back to mine with a deer. I know it was going to happen at some point because many years ago I saw a red deer that was standing, like a big stag standing at the side of the road, and thinking, do I really want to mess up Gareth's day and his car? And he never did, so that was fine. And I've always been thinking, oh, this is going to be the day, this is going to be the day. And last week, after we finished recording, driving up the hill, two quite young roe deer just sort of wandering across.
That same road, I saw red deer the other day.
Yeah.
I think that was before last recording though.
There's a few of them around because Jess and Drew saw the same ones. But yeah, so that I haven't seen deer for a while, but that was quite nice to see some roe deer in there. That and
did you see the Exmoor beast jump out and take it down?
No, it was just this shadow that came across. It was very blurry. Very blurry. That we've got some new fish at work.
Oh yeah. Neon tetras?
Some more neon tetras, actually. We've been slowly bolstering the amount that we've got.
Are they breeding yet?
Not yet, but the numbers that we've got, we've now got about 38 in this quite large tank.
Nice.
It's a lovely shoal. And we've now got, he's in there for the moment until he grows a bit. It's a species of catfish from Lake Tanganyika.
Nice.
That will go in with our Lake Malawian cichlids. I know, obviously, but yeah, we can play a bit fast and loose with that. But he's lovely and spotty. He's absolutely tiny at the moment, so he has to go in with something that's not going to eat him. Much else really, other than that, and probably relating to our creature feature this week, I built an IKEA bed.
Oh yeah,
which took me a good while to do, but I feel so much better having done it. So that was the sort of summary of what I've been up to: building beds, seeing deer, looking at new fish.
Good.
Yeah.
Good.
All right. Well, should we head into this week's news?
Yeah.
It's the news.
Right, well, we're into this week's news. Aaron, what are we looking at?
Well, first up comes to us from BBC News, and the headline is New National Forest to see 20 million trees planted. I'm really quite excited about this, if it's done properly. No, I believe it's going to happen, but my worry is
20 million pine trees planted in rows.
Yeah, I don't like that kind of thing. But from what it sounds like, it's going to be done properly, and it sounds really good. So basically, as Trump pledges to destroy natural habitats across the US, 2,500 hectares, that's a very weird way of saying 2,500 hectares.
It does, yeah.
Of new woodland is to be created as Labour begin their plans to increase the percentage of UK land covered by forest. Now, I always say, if you're going to criticise someone, and I have criticised Labour quite extensively, you also got to give them credit, which is why Tories got a lot of criticism and no credit, because they never did anything that was any good.
They did. They lost the election.
That's true. Yeah, they did do us that favour. Anyway, The Western Forest, as it's going to be called, will stitch together existing woodlands across the Cotswolds, Gloucestershire, the Mendips, Somerset, and Wiltshire, as well as plant 20.
Can we call that the Eastern Western Forest? Because that's not the West. That's what Londoners think the West is. Somerset and Gloucester. We're in the West, in Devon and Cornwall.
It's we just get left out. They actually forget we're here, unless they want to like dump things here and have second homes here. They just forget that we're here.
We're part of the Celtic rainforest. They could be doing more for that.
We are. But on top of this, these areas, where the woodland's been stitched together, they're going to plant 20 million new trees and start basically the process of bonding of this forest with urban areas in places such as Bristol.
Nice.
So Bristol will be on the cusp of woodland. So yeah, it's always good when you get to say something good about someone for a change.
Yeah. Oh, that's not bad. Well, I'm going to say something bad about them.
Well, good. We're all about balance.
Balance, fairness.
No bias here.
Yeah, exactly. Also from the BBC, charities accuse Starmer of misleading spider claims. Now, this is the interesting news that conservation charities have accused the Prime Minister, Keir Starmer, of making misleading comments about rare spiders that stopped the building of a brand new town. Now, Keir Starmer had spoken about what he believes is unnecessary blocking by regulatory So Keir Starmer has spoken about what he believes is unnecessary blocking by regulators and other bodies, which he says is holding back households. The government has pledged to build about 1.5 million homes within the next 5 years. However, in Ebbsfleet in Kent, where this supposed spider issue had occurred, the rare species of spider known as the distinguished jumping spider, which I think is a lovely name for a jumping spider, is only found in this area. The project that was apparently held up was 1,300 homes being built on the site where this one species lives. However, a further 4,000 homes were built around that area. So it's not like the spider held up all of the thing. It held up a specific bit over it. And unfortunately, Labour have used this as a way to basically make it seem that environmental protections are something to just get around, which is not a good thing. And I fear that they're playing the fact of it is just a spider, no one cares, because a lot of people would be less concerned. If it was something like a rare mammal or a rare bird, people would be a lot more concerned. But,
or, if it was a bird that they could shoot out of the sky, they'd be concerned.
Well, yes.
I get more and more I'm getting the feeling that Labour's approach to wildlife is very much like the Tory approach to immigrants, and that essentially scapegoat them, make it seem like the problems of the everyday person are because of the wildlife.
Well, I feel it's more a case of they're just doing a watered down version of what the Tories have done in the past. So yes, it's not great.
Not good. No. So my next article comes to us from earth.com. Wiggly skulls helped birds evolve from dinosaurs. I don't really like that headline. I think it represents a misunderstanding on the part of the writer, having read into this a little bit.
It's a very serious condition, having a wiggly skull.
I think they mean wiggly skulls help birds outlast other dinosaurs, not evolve away from dinosaurs. But essentially, this is the news that extant dinosaurs evolved jaws that were not firmly connected to the rest of the skull, unlike most other taxa, but similar in some ways to snakes and fish. This basically meant that birds could manipulate the use of their beaks in far more ways than other classes within the dinosaur clade, offering an evolutionary advantage and making the bird branch of the family tree much more adaptable to change, which would have been important at the end of the Cretaceous. The main contributing factor that allowed for this structural change was the development of larger brain sizes requiring a different skull blueprint and forcing muscular changes within the head anatomy. It's basically one change that resulted incidentally in a lot of other changes, including this wiggly trait that is more scientifically referred to as cranial kinesis.
Yeah. one of the big factors as well that meant that modern birds, the neo-aves, basically survived through that is their loss of teeth, because they went to a seed and insect-eating diet,
that's true.
which meant they were able to survive the KPG extinction because, well, there may have been less animals and things for the toothed birds to eat, but there was plenty of seeds and things that would have lasted a lot longer through harsher weather lying around, and those birds survived and prospered. So my next one also comes from the BBC, and it's also to do with dinosaurs as well, in fact, even a theropod at that. This has literally come up this afternoon, this particular bit of news. This is the discovery of a new two-clawed therizinosaur from Mongolia.
Oh, okay.
This has been called, and I think this is a case of really kind of boring naming. Do you want to take a guess at what they've called this therizinosaur with two claws?
Two-clawed therizinosaur.
I mean, you're very close in
Two-clawed
in Latin or Greek. Greek.
So that would be Duonicus.
Oh, he's got it.
Yeah?
Duonicus. It is. Yeah, I knew you were going to do it. Yeah, two-clawed. Is basically a new species of therizinosaur. They have found some exquisitely preserved specimens of claws of this animal. It's estimated to weigh around 260 kilos. And in fact, one of the claws has a bit of preserved keratinous sheath from the claw itself.
Wow.
So, yeah, really cool.
Very cool. So my last headline for you guys is long-limbed creature with bent toes found on walking trail. It's a new species, and this comes to us from the Miami Herald, which is funny because this happened very far away from Miami.
Fair enough.
So I'm going to butcher this Latin name now. Chitodactylus chitwanensis, or the Chitwan bent-toed gecko, is a new species discovered in the mountains of central Nepal one night in 2023. Nepal being famous for its location next to Miami.
Of course, yeah. Miami, Nepal.
Anyone listening who's bad at geography, ignore what I just said, please. So the research team noticed a slender gecko-like form with long legs and grey-green eyes emerging from a rocky hiding spot whilst the team was surveying Nepalese wildlife. Their study has been published in the peer-reviewed journal Zootaxa, and the animal, as you can see, is a stunning gecko.
Nice. So my final one is, it's the senseless and mindless fire that has been set in Cornwall. And this is animals likely killed in mindless fire from the BBC. The Cornwall Wildlife Trust has said about a quarter of the Rossannon Downs, about 275 acres site near St. Columb, was scorched in a blaze with firefighters tackling it on Thursday. While it's been reported that the herd of 7 Shetland ponies that live on the heath itself have been able to escape.
Oh, right.
It's likely that a variety of other animals have not made it out, including adders, field mice, ground nesting birds, which would have all perished in these flames. Devon and Cornwall Police have said that the incident is being treated as a possible arson attack, and definitely so. I mean, even around here, there has been fires that have started on heathlands as well. And unfortunately, it's one of these things that as the weather gets warmer now this time of the year, we're probably only going to see more of it. And hopefully it's not caused by arson when it comes to things like this, because it's just, there's no need to do that. And it causes devastation. And I can guarantee you, if those seven Shetland ponies had perished in that fire, there would be a lot more.
There'd be uproar. But because there's adders and some ground nesting birds, nobody cares.
Exactly.
What I will say is that there's been a very suspicious amount of wildfires just in the last week, all over the UK. There's a lot of suspicious origin going around, so hopefully that's not the case. But if you guys have articles or topics of interest that you want us to cover, please send them on in to us, like others like Louise O'Leary and Chris Ackerson have done over the past few weeks. We're really grateful for them, and if we think that others will be interested, we'll certainly cover them. My main article this week is how paleontologists are uncovering dinosaur behavior, and this comes to us from The Conversation. So I chose this article because you often see online, especially nowadays, the whole the fact that it's now edgy and cool to be science deniers. I think you're stupid, but
yeah,
there
basically.
we go. You often see this statement or words to this effect, and that is, everything we know about dinosaur appearance and dinosaur behavior is just guesswork. And this is often said to refute scientific consensus in favor of knowledge or imagery held since childhood.
But technically, everything we know about science is guesswork until we put that guess into a test of some sort.
Yeah.
Test it, and then, oh, what? It's not guesswork.
The way a hypothesis becomes a theory is you test that hypothesis. You don't. So good science is not testing to prove yourself right. You come up with a hypothesis and you try and prove
an answer.
So there's rigorous testing against parameters to make sure that, okay, it might be proven wrong in future, but for the moment, to the best of our abilities and methods and techniques and everything available to us, this is what we consider to be true.
Exactly.
Anyway, it's also said, or should I say, this kind of statement is also used to justify keeping one's head buried deep in the sand and one's heels firmly dug in to preserve what Hollywood media has made us all think looks cool. Suffice it to say, the movie monsters made famous in the Jurassic franchise do look incredible. You'll never hear me. If you look at it as dinosaurs, then I understand. But you'll hear me bemoan like certain aesthetic choices, like the frill and the spitting. But you'll never hear me say that these animals don't look cool for the universe that they're set in. There's a lot of hard work that has gone in by these creature designers and the puppeteers and stuff. But education, facts, and the truth are important.
Mm-hmm.
And with that in mind, this very timely article was released that I thought I'd arm you all with before the next movie is released, so that when you see the aforementioned statement or words to that effect, you can rebuke it and tell people exactly why scientists do know how these actual animals behaved in many cases. As the article states right from the off, gone are the days in which paleontology could only vaguely tell us which species were herbivorous and which were predatory. Opportunities provided to the scientific community by new technology and new methods have seen missing links in the lives of these long extinct animals get filled in like pieces of an intricate and complex puzzle. Extracting better preserved fossils has offered us feather plumages or scaly armor. Being able to detect melanosomes via electron microscopes that are available to us today has allowed us to identify pigmentation and coloration of many species, the scaly ones and the feathery ones alike. This is something that we covered with Archaeopteryx and Microraptor.
Yeah.
When it comes to actual behavior, the habit has been to see the preserved specimen as a marker for the norm, not a postcard snapshot of that one moment caught in time. And this is a problem. Assumptions make an ass out of you and me. And the observation and resulting naming of a raptor genus is such an example.
Yes.
Found amongst a clutch of eggs at a time when dinosaurs were thought too dumb to be practicing active parental behaviors, it was assumed that this species stole and ate the eggs of others. But then it turned out to be the one laying and incubating the eggs. Nowadays, as I say, the technology and the techniques have improved in leaps and bounds. We now use CT scanners that are employed to analyze the brain casings of the skull of a species. Teeming the opportunities that advancements offer, as well as the cross-pollination of knowledge from other fields of science, has meant that our log of dinosaur diets, feeding techniques, internal physiology and external appearance, as well as paleo environments, methods of locomotion, and different life stages, is continuously growing and being added to. And this creates a strong foundation, basically a wealth of knowledge about these animals that we've never seen. Studies can be built off of this data. Comparisons to modern extant dinosaur species can be drawn, as well as other archosaurs, and educated inferences can be made and adapted. So, as you can see from this relatively short article, it's not simply a case of looking at fossilized bones and trace fossils. It's not just dental instruments and plaster and a whole lot of guesswork in a desert. This is a field utilizing many tools, countless methods, varied technology, and interdisciplinary knowledge from across the whole universe of science, the multiverse of science.
I knew you were going to say that.
To make educated, fact-driven summations of how these dead animals behaved in life. Months ago, we were asked an excellent question by one of our listeners. It's still to this day maybe one of my favorite questions we've ever asked, especially as it was relevant because I damaged my knee and I was on crutches at the time, and I could actually kind of attest it to the fact it worked. The question was, how could the Asdarchid pterosaurs, that is to say the giant pterosaurs like Quetzalcoatlus and Haplopteryx, how could they achieve and maintain flight? The answer is not just in the bones. It's fragmented across the whole spectrum of science, and it's up to paleontologists to find these fragments in whichever scientific discipline they're hidden and piece them together. And this is something that when we interviewed Paige DePolo, she said, like, if you want to get involved in paleontology, it doesn't matter necessarily about being a field paleontologist. You could be just good with computers or good with medical things or good with sports. Every field of science has a value to paleontology. So yeah, that is the article. I think it's a really nice introductory article to get you armed with the ability to basically debunk this nonsense that scientists are just guessing. There is a lot of education. There's a lot of study. There's a lot of research. There's a lot of evidence that backs up these claims that real paleontology makes about these long dead animals.
I mean, the amount of stuff technology wise that's sort of happened within the last 10 years or so that's become available to the layman, like to be able to do these things. The ability to have a 3D scanner and scan fossils and have 3D versions, which means that there is now a wealth of fossil data out there on the internet that people can actually print off as 3D models to actually then have in their own physical sense. We've talked about it in the past about a site that came out, Morphosource, which has a multitude of 3D printable 3D files of different body parts from different museums, different animals, all sorts of different things from all around the world, that is there for people to be able to share that information, which years ago would have meant, a person going from a museum on one side of the planet, putting some fossils in a box and shipping them, or going that ability to be able to send someone a file and then in theory 3D print it out and be able to realize that fossil that may have been collected 100, 200 years ago and shipped to another museum from where it is on the on the other side of the planet, you could look at that and compare it to the ones that have been taken from the field that week. You could compare what's there. You could start to fill in those gaps, and that's already happened with just that small change in technology of making things, a digital in appearance to people. I think that's helped it massively, and I mean, not to mention just that making it more accessible for everyone as well to be able to understand these things, and if you want to download them yourself on your own computer and do and have a look at them and use them. There's been more, I'd say, advancement from the sort of the digital aspect of things within the last 10 years than a lot of things that's been accessible to the public.
I'm really glad that you brought up 3D printing, because that's an element that I forgot, and it's a great example of two things that I briefly covered. Firstly, is the interdisciplinary nature of paleontology nowadays. So a paleontologist you could have a paleontologist that has a background interest in 3D printing, but to do some of this stuff,
Tech
You need a
specialist,
3D
basically.
printer technician,
Yeah.
who's going to know how to jigsaw piece the bigger stuff together. So there's an example of someone who's not in the field, whose skills can actively help paleontologists. And it's also a great example of exactly what Paige DePolo said.
Yeah.
That it takes all types of people.
Well, that
So-
and
also it's like those 3D printing things that's made doable not just by having a 3D printing technician, someone who specializes in 3D printing, but it's made possible by people who are CT scanning
yeah,
experts, because again, you're scanning the skull, you're getting those dimensions, you're getting that image of what it looks like, and then you're translating that to the type of file that can then be 3D printed.
well, we're literally with my students the other week. We were talking about the different parts of the brain and how the different senses in animals respond. And the first thing that I had on the particular PowerPoint for that one was what we now know about Tyrannosaurus brain cases from being able to, the old way of doing it was pouring plaster in and being able to, get a sense of the shape of what was there. But now we can obviously use a CT scanner and work out, well, it had massive olfactory bulbs at the front. So it's obviously being able to, smell really well.
The sense of smell is brilliant.
It's got pretty large connections for its visual cortex as well. Its sense of hearing was really good. So that being then compared to modern day animals, the equivalent would be something like a turkey vulture, which has the best sense of smell of any animal, or certainly of any bird on the planet, being able to smell like a dead mouse under the forest floor, under the leaves, whilst it's up in the air, is an amazing ability. And I always love the fact that, the old line in Jurassic Park of stay still, it can't see you if you don't move. Not only could it smell you before you were even out of that car, it could see you about a mile away. So you that film ends at that point
with a human being like that, something that size, and with a tyrannosaur, with the sensory capabilities it had, it could probably hear your heartbeat through your chest through the car.
But yeah, I mean, movies being one thing, but yeah, the advancement of that sort of field and the blurring of the lines between other fields as well, where they overlap, where what's useful in one field, like the sort of biomechanics and things, can be useful in a variety of different fields, like even the veterinary industry is useful in this as well. And it all goes to show that all science is interconnected, So yeah.
And if anything, not only should this article, or rather what I would like to say actually, is that I hope that if anything, the article itself armed you with the ability to debunk such nonsense.
Yeah.
But also that hearing what we're talking about and referencing stuff that we've come across before, if you want to get involved in paleontology, that gives you an element of hope that
there's
you can
always a way in
some respect. Honestly, even sports science has helped in paleontology in the past because of like locomotion and how the body works and stuff like that. So yeah, there's many ways in. There's much hope.
Well, should we move swiftly on into our creature feature for this week? Yes.
It's the creature feature.
Right, well, we're into this week's creature feature. Erin, I'm going to start things off by asking you, what are your top 5 birds to spot in the UK? And this comes on the back of, obviously, this week's creature feature, but also off the back of what I'll say in a minute about a bird that was spotted not too far from here.
Okay, right off the bat. So the nature of the question sounds like ones that I have seen, not ones that I like.
No.
I'd like to see.
You would want to see.
Oh, what I'd want to see.
My list has changed over the years because it used to include species that I've now seen. These are ones that are on my list to see again, or to see, because I think maybe one of them I have seen, but I can't remember. So
Okay. Three that I have seen that I love seeing every time I see. I think they're pretty obvious. Common kingfisher,
nice.
the red kite, and the barn owl.
Yeah,
The other two that would make that list, now that you've told me it can be ones that I would like to see here, European bee eater and hoopie.
cool. I mean, do we get European bee to turn up
Yeah,
too much?
in Norfolk, they tend to turn up in Norfolk. It hasn't happened for a long time, and then I
Yeah.
think it was like a year or so ago they started turning up again.
Oh, well, fair enough. Well, my top 5 list is in no particular order. These are all ones that I am desperate to see in one form or another. White-tailed sea eagle. I just want to see what is our largest bird of prey.
Good answer, because I've seen one right here, and I've like,
Well, there you go. I mean,
forgot
I
all
haven't.
about that.
And annoyingly, they started becoming more common around Poole Harbour after I stopped living there. It's almost like they knew I was leaving.
Right, strike off the European bee because, like you say, I mean, it comes, but it's not really supposed to be here. And put white-tailed sea eagle in for me.
Okay. Hoopoe, which you literally or Drew texted me about the other day, or texted us about, saying that there was one down the road from here in Woolacombe, which I'm still determined to go and see if he's still there.
The funny thing about that was me and Drew literally texted into the group chat exactly the same time, and we were like, jinx. But as soon as we'd gotten over that funny bit, it was like reports coming in from Penzance, Bude, somewhere in Dorset, I've forgotten where, and Woolacombe all at once.
So there might be a few of them in the country.
Yeah.
Well, here's hoping, and hopefully I can get some lovely footage of a hoopoe.
It's hoopoe, yeah. I said hoopie. I meant hoopoe.
I say hoopie, hoopoe all the time. It's osprey. Now, this is one I'm fairly certain I have seen as a kid in Scotland. And I also think I might have seen one in Australia, but I don't know if I paid attention. And basically, I'm scratching it from the record for the simple reason I can't remember. But it's such an amazing creature, and one that when I told Drew about this list earlier today, he was quite shocked that it's still on my list. Dippers. I've never seen a dipper in the wild. Which apparently they're on the river not too far from here. So that's another one that I just need to strike off the list at some point. But these are all birds that I'd love to see at one point or another, and I'll get round to it. But it's always good to have a list of birds that you want to go and see.
Yeah.
There are more than this, but I'd certainly like to include
top
more.
5.
Yeah. I mean, it used to have red kite on it. It used to have black grouse on it, but I've ticked both of those birds off. It's certainly red kite in their droves, and
they're always a pleasure to see, though.
Oh, definitely. It doesn't mean I don't want to see those birds.
No,
these are the ones I want to see at the moment. And of course, the creature that is the feature of this week's creature feature, the Western capercaillie, the world's largest grouse. That is definitely on my list and has been on my list for years. After, I would say, learning about their plight and also seeing one of possibly my favorite clips from The Life of Birds is Sir David Attenborough being floored by a particularly aggressive capercaillie as it comes out the forest at him and tries to tell him off and doesn't realize who he is telling off. He should have shown some more respect there. So what on earth is a capercaillie? Well, as I said, they are a grouse. They are quite a big grouse. They're, in fact, the world's largest grouse. And they are the heaviest as well. The heaviest known specimen recorded in captivity weighed about 7.2 kilos.
Okay.
So they're a chunky bird. They show extreme sexual dimorphism to such a level that, this is a family of birds that sits within the pheasant family that is known for sexual dimorphism, which is basically where the males and females look drastically different. These guys take it to an extreme, with males being nearly twice the size of females.
Oh, wow.
And they're, in fact, one of the most sexually dimorphic in size of all living birds, only exceeded by things like bustards and maybe a few members of the pheasant family as well. They are very hard to confuse male from female. They almost look like two separate species of bird, apart from the fact that you will find one large male with multiple females hanging around him. So it would look rather odd. So what do they look like? Well, the male, or the cock bird, usually ranges from about You laughing at you like you're as bad as my
I'm
students.
not gonna laugh. That's not funny. And then
You're
it
laughing at the word
happens.
cock. Fair enough. Well, in the terms of this, we're talking about a male bird.
Of course, of course.
They typically range from about 74 to 85 centimeters in length,
Hmm.
so from the tip of the beak to the base of the tail, with a wingspan of about 90 to 125 centimeters, and an average about 4.1 kilos.
Yeah.
The body feathers on the male are dark grey, with dark brown hints on them as well. The breast feathers are a dark metallic green, while the rest of the body is sort of black through to brown. It is a stunning bird. You could almost say that they're sort of dark, really dark blue as well.
Mm,
It depends on the light. And if the bird is sat in the right light, it can look totally different.
I was gonna say, isn't there a slight iridescence to them?
Yeah.
Yeah.
The males are a stunning looking bird, and genuinely one of the prettiest birds around. I know we hate on pheasants an awful lot on this.
Oh, only one specific pheasant, and only well, not once, but only certain species of pheasant, and only in certain specific
See,
situations.
I quite like the ringneck pheasant as well. As a species, it's a fascinating bird.
As a
Our
species
use
in
of
its
it,
own country.
but pheasants themselves and members of the larger order that these guys are in are really stunning birds and very easy to spend a lot of time just looking at them.
I always wanted a golden pheasant.
Yeah,
I
they're
think
quite
they're
nice.
an amazing looking animal.
So, like I say, the body feathers of these are stunning, and the belly and undertail feathers as well can be anywhere from black to white in color. There is also a bright red spot just above the eye
Mm.
of naked skin that kind of looks like a little just splodge of red, which is where it sort of helps to show off. And a lot of birds in this family have that same bit. In fact, black grouse also have a little bit of red just above their eyes as well. It helps to stand out and really make them look amazing against that sort of black feathering. Their beak is ivory in color, and think of like an enlarged chicken beak. It's a little bit sort of taller, a bit broader, but it is, just a quite standard, smallish looking beak. Their tail is short and it's sort of fan shaped. Think like a peacock, but somebody's gone round and just sort of really leveled it
Yeah.
off, to give it sort of a standard, like, those hand fans that you can get that sort of fold out. Just imagine that stuck on the back of them. That's basically what you get. Used for display, obviously, to the females. The hen's body from beak to tail is approximately 54 to 64 centimeters long, with a wingspan of 70 centimeters, so drastically smaller than the male. Their weight is anywhere between 1.5 to 2.5 kilos, so it's basically half the size of the male bird. Now, the female has a far more typical game bird appearance, in that her body is mostly browns and blacks with stripes running down them, to basically help break up their body shape in the undergrowth of the heather and gorse and various other plants growing on the ground. Now, across their chest and up towards the throat as well, they've got this sort of orange splashes on them.
Yeah.
in different sort of hues as well. And what I quite like is their tail feathers look very similar to kookaburra tail feathers in that they're orangey brown in color, and they have black bands going across them with a white tip. So you could almost confuse the two, with those colors on it. So yeah, the females lack that bright red skin above the eye, but they do have a slightly pinkish eyelid, so it doesn't stand out. But they're not trying to show off to the males. The males are trying to show off to them. So where is it found? Well, I haven't really alluded to where this bird is found, but as you could probably guess, it's found in the UK. However, most of our viewers in the UK will probably be going, I've never seen this bird in my life. For the very simple reason it's only found in a very, 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 very small place in the UK. It's found in the Cairngorms in Scotland. Basically, I associate this bird with Scotland for a variety of reasons, which I'll get onto in a moment. But their range is quite significant in size. In fact, it used to be even bigger, but obviously because of human pressures, their range has definitely suffered. However, you will find these birds up in the Alps, in the Pyrenees, so into France and Spain. You'll find them in Italy and going as far down as Greece and up as far north as Norway, Finland, and Sweden. In fact, Finland and Sweden both have special significance with these birds. Sweden is important to our birds, and I'll explain why in a bit. And Finland, they are a national bird in a few different areas of Finland. So
Oh, yeah.
they basically are found in those areas, but they are not just found in the boreal forests of northern Europe. You'll actually find these guys across Poland, into Ukraine, into Russia, as far across as Mongolia, and just touching the very northern tip of China. You'll find them in those areas. Basically, think of like a massive band going across of Eurasia. They almost make it as far as the Pacific on the other side.
Wow.
They
okay.
just miss out by a good sort of chunk of like Russia, China, the Kamchatka and that sort of area. But yes, you'll find them in just basically a band straight across into Western Europe, the Western Palearctic, as it's known. In this vast expanse of areas, it prefers certain habitats over one another. But talking about the UK's habitat for these birds, and certainly most of Northern Europe, they prefer open pine forests with a mixture of vegetation, something that is quite hard to come by in the UK, sadly. We either have pine forest or a mixture of other stuff.
Green desert.
Yeah. So this bird is happiest in a variety of different habitats, but it's mostly associated with these boreal forests, upland heathland, and the capercaillie in the UK, like I say, prefers to live in the Cairngorms National Park, which is a wide variety of different habitats, which in some areas are being heavily protected, some areas not as much. So the capercaillie is non-migratory. It basically stays in its sort of home range, year round, because it doesn't really need to go anywhere else, really. And you'll find that they're actually quite resilient little birds. When I say little birds, they're not really that little. So the abundance of capercaillie pretty much depends on their habitat quality. They prefer sun-flooded, open, mixed woodlands. So think spruce, pine, fir, beech, and lots of other ground-living species of plant like heathers, gorses. Basically, a nice mosaic is what you're after. Good quality habitat.
Lots of different levels and different thicknesses.
Yes, they do need trees, but they also need open patches in the forest. One, for displaying when it comes to lekking season, and two, for being able to find food as well.
Yeah.
So the birds need open forest to be able to find their food in the summer months, and their diet at this point consists pretty much of fresh leaves as well as berries. They're particularly fond of blueberries, and any member of that sort of family of plants, any sort of berry bush, they absolutely love.
Cool.
And when people are tracking them, they actually are able to tell what time of the year it is based on the consistency of their poo, because when there's lots of berries around, that's pretty much all they're eating.
Fair enough.
So, whereas in the winter, though, when the snow is thickest and on the ground, these birds will actually quite clumsily fly up into the trees, the pine trees, and they will eat pine needles.
Oh, wow.
Which does not sound like an appetizing diet, but basically, if the snow is that thick on the ground that they can't get to food, that's the next easiest option, is living in the trees and being able to snip off pine needles.
Yeah, right.
And because of that, they are a specialist herbivore in being able to find these foods. Saying that, though, they will, as the chicks start to grow, they will eat more insects and the occasional small lizard or something like that. But as they become adults, they become far more vegetarian in their choice. And they've obviously got to be quite hardy herbivores to be able to eat pine needles.
Yeah.
So, their name. The common name, capercaillie, they are a species that I always associate with Scotland because that's what I've always thought of them. And their name is very much connected to Scotland. In fact, their name is a Scottish name. It's about as Scottish sounding as it possibly could. It sounds Gaelic. Well, the name is indeed a derivation of the Scottish Gaelic capercaillie, which translates to horse of the woodland.
Okay.
I couldn't find any more as to why that is. Maybe it's to do with their call, which is a little sort of gruff-ish, but it's not horse-like. I don't know. I'll put the sound in here if I can find it. So the current spelling, however, was because it's gone through various different versions of how it's spelt and everything, was actually standardized by William Yarrell, an English zoologist, for his book A History of British Birds in 1843. So at that point, it started to be standardized as to how we spell capercaillie today.
Right.
So there are a few other alternative names for a bird that obviously goes across such a huge range. These are just the ones in English. I didn't bother looking at Mongolian for this bird and everything, you know. This bird has, I'd say, a variety of other names, from the Eurasian capercaillie to the wood grouse to the heathercock to the cock of the woods to the Aaron White. Oh, you're actually not laughing now. That's fair enough. No. Have I said cock enough? It's not. It's lost its funniness.
No, it's so funny the first time. Then after that, it's like then your head is then in bird mode, and you realize, right, every name is going to be bad.
You're doing better than my students when it comes to that.
Yeah. No,
I'm trying to teach the difference between male and female birds, and everyone laughing every time you say the word cock.
Also, I do actually, weirdly, I do know them as cock of the woods.
Really?
Yeah. That I know them as capercaillie and cock of the woods, and I don't know why. But yeah, I do.
Well, there you go. So the scientific name for this, as per usual, took me down a bit of a rabbit hole, an excessive rabbit hole as well, actually, because I got onto far different species compared to this one. But this bird is known as the Western capercaillie. There are two species of capercaillie, but this is the main species and the type species of its genus as well, is Tetero urungalis. And it breaks down to mean, in Latin, tetero, meaning game bird, probably probably in reference to things like black grouse, which looks similar.
Yeah.
To urungalis, which is basically a homophone from the German word urahun, meaning wood grouse, making it the game bird wood grouse. It is basically...
It's one of those boring names, really, isn't it?
It could be better. I'd have called it something like I don't know, the shadow grouse, or like, you know, something like that, because they've got such an iridescent sheen. They look stunning.
You do tend to get this with scientific names. Some of them are really interesting, but a lot of them are either boring, like this one, and without spoiling it,
Golden Eagle.
Next one, but my next creature feature. But then you get some which they should be boring, but they're kind of funny. Like my last one, which was Bear.
Bear.
The most bear.
Well, in fact, the bear would actually encounter the capercaillie in the wild, so they'd probably even eat them. Well, saying that though, their status does land them in a bit of a sticky situation when it comes to being food for the bear. So the global population of this bird is about 1.5 to 2 million individuals. They are listed as least concern by the IUCN, although the populations of Central Europe are declining and fragmented. And I bet you can see where I'm going with this, because I'm going to start talking about the UK, where the population is not in fact great. It's in fact in the toilet. So let's take a look back at where this bird actually intersects with Britain's first attempts at conservation of species.
Okay.
Because this actually has a historical precedent that is quite amazing and quite sad when you think about it. So this bird was actually hunted to extinction in the UK in 1785. It used to be perfectly normal to go and blast these guys out of the sky. Before then...
For every species in Britain.
Well, yes. But unlike the rest of Europe, they can't swim here.
No,
and they certainly can't fly here. Before being reintroduced, however, 50 years later from Sweden. So you remember I said Sweden holds a significance. Our birds are the direct descendants of Swedish birds that were brought in. Just like our white-tailed sea eagles are Norwegian in descendant.
Thank goodness for the Vikings.
Exactly. We've got Viking birds.
They may have raided us once, but now they're giving us birds.
Exactly. So, in fact, this is the very first rewilding project in the UK
Okay,
in and around 1832.
that's enough to consider it a British tradition.
Hmm.
So
There you go.
let's play to that.
But we
British
have
people
to-
like their traditions.
But we have to take our animals from Norway, Sweden, and
Scandinavian
Finland.
countries.
Yeah, Scandinavian animals.
So
Just like our furniture, it has to come from a Scandinavian country.
are you saying that if we could get IKEA on board, then the British
IKEA bears.
government would be more welcoming of the idea of links?
I think so, yeah.
We can bring
Flat
links
pack
in from
links.
Sweden, so long as IKEA are involved.
Yeah, got to put them
Flat
together.
pack links.
So the reintroduction itself was really initially successful, and by the 1970s, the capercaillie population had grown to around 20,000 birds. However, this is where, yet again, there's always a however, there's always a but.
Yeah.
Numbers started declining, and the population decreased massively by the 1960s, to the population then plummeting to a high of around 10,000 pairs in the 1960s, then fewer than 1,000 birds in 1999. It was even named the bird most likely to become extinct in the UK by 2015. And that wouldn't just be making it go extinct, that would be going extinct twice. So this should be a warning to us in so many ways.
You mean the first time wasn't a warning?
Well, yeah. A survey identified 1,114 birds occupying a range that had been reduced massively in 2015. However, the latest survey has suggested that there's only 542 birds remaining. That's pretty much split in half.
Yeah.
Since 2015. No, 10 years. 10 years? Yes, 10 years.
Yeah, that's 10 years.
That's how time works, people. So some of the many reasons for their decline include geofencing, basically being somewhat invisible to these birds and them hitting it, or it also splitting up areas. Habitat destruction and fragmentation, the usual problems where we basically put driven grouse moors as more important than this grouse, which is annoying. As much as I love the look of the red grouse, and even though it is technically native, the fact that they are bred in gigantic numbers to be released for rich people to go and shoot is just insane. Other reasons have included predation and a lack of suitable habitat. But a recent review from Nature Scott identified low breeding success as a key factor preventing capercaillie recovery. Basically, their chicks aren't surviving in decent enough numbers to be able to restock the adult population. And they believe this is due to a combination of climate change, so wetter springs, reducing the availability of insects when the chicks need them. Like I say, they need a more protein-heavy diet at that age, and disturbances from people and dogs. As much as, it's nice to go walking in the countryside, keep your dog on a lead, because that does a huge amount of damage if you just let them wander off. And also stick to trails, stick to paths. Just because you want to go wandering off doesn't mean that you're the only person who's going to do that. And the moment you start making a trail, everyone will follow. Increased human recreation in their territory has basically scared birds out of areas as well, which has pushed them into areas where they, can end up being hit by cars or preyed on by predators, basically. This has also meant that predators have been able to pick off some of these animals if they're pushed out of their sort of preferred habitat, from things like foxes and crows to domestic cats and dogs. Now, obviously, foxes and crows are natural predators for these animals, and I'd even hesitate to say that cats, to an extent, are somewhat should be part of their natural predation. Scottish wildcats,
lynx.
But it's when people are being irresponsible and letting animals off leads or letting them out to roam is when it can cause issues for these animals. Some have even suggested that the increase of pine martens in the Cairngorms has actually contributed to their decline. But I would say this is only going to be a very small amount of damage done by these animals compared to other effects. And realistically, it's the same sort of issue that people have with like tigers and stuff like that. They are the endangered species themselves, just as much as the prey species we're looking at. So efforts are underway to protect the areas where these birds nest and make sure that the chicks are protected as well, because, like I say, that seems to be one of the big issues that they're facing at the moment. Conservation groups are obviously helping to bolster the numbers. However, if, like me, you are desperate to go and see these birds, and I am desperate to basically go and see them, the bigger problem is obviously from here, it's a good 10.5 hour drive to get up to somewhere like Kingussie.
That's on a
That would be with no traffic, yeah. And weekends being what they are and somewhat limited, it's not looking great for me at the moment. It is, in fact, the start of their breeding season coming up as well. So it's actually, but it is very much frowned upon to obviously go and interfere with these birds.
Of course.
So if you are desperate to see one of these birds, there are ways that you can achieve this and still help to conserve this species as best as possible. Now, the RSPB puts out a fantastic list of recommendations for viewing not only these, but any kind of grouse species. And I must admit, that's exactly what I did when I went looking for black grouse in North Wales. They basically recommend for black grouse viewing, you get there early before the sun comes up, that you remain in your car. You can have the windows open and sunroof open and that. And you obviously don't get out. You don't make any noise. You try and be as respectful to make sure that those birds are not disturbed. And I can tell you when I did go and do that, everyone was doing exactly that.
Oh, that's
and you could see how respectful everyone was being. What you did find, though, is as the sun came up, there were people who were the late stragglers who turned up, by which point, though, most of the birds had finished lecking and were sort of fading off, and going to different places to go and find food. So all that really happened is those people kind of missed their chance to see the birds at their best the moment the sun comes up. It was definitely worth the wait, and I'd say if you're anywhere in that part of North Wales, worth the trip to basically go and to watch these birds lecking. And if I ever get good enough with a camera, I'll try and get some decent footage of those. But to view these birds is very, very different. So their population decline has been a massive factor in why viewing them is quite a big issue. So their population declines are being tackled by encouraging appropriate grazing by sheep and deer.
Yeah.
Those are two big problems that are causing issues with these birds. Obviously, deer numbers need to be controlled. If we had, I don't know, lynx in the Cairngorms, probably wouldn't be as big an issue. Increased habitat quality, not just quantity, quality, getting rid of massive patches of just forestry land, which is dark and dank and void of life in those forestry areas, but thinning them out a bit and having a mixture of woodland as well will help massively, not just for them, but for the health of the environment.
That's one of the problems in the British Isles is what forest or woodland we do have is always essentially a monoculture.
Yeah.
It's the same trees. And if you notice, this is one thing that drives me mad when I go walking in the woods, is it's
straight
like
rows?
planted like it's planted in a grid, like someone's been playing squares.
Yeah.
It really does my head in when I see that.
So other things that have helped or will certainly help is removing or marking deer fences so the birds don't fly into them and basically kill themselves.
You can get those quite brightly coloured tassels that go on deer fencing to prevent that.
So many conservation groups and organisations have worked together with private landowners and are working to help these birds through the UK Biodiversity Action Plan, which is basically put forward a framework of what to do. Now, like I was saying before, if you want to go and see birds like this is very, very different to watching the black grouse, for instance. But the RSPB has put together these fantastic lists, and I would highly recommend going and checking out their website. I've literally taken this straight from their website to read their list of recommendations. So capercaillie are rare and are known to be highly sensitive to disturbance. So they're listed on Schedule 1 of the Wildlife and Countryside Act 1981, which makes it illegal to intentionally or recklessly disturb these birds during their breeding period, so March through to August. So it kicks off right about now. Yes. So viewing during the breeding season should be undertaken, can only be undertaken under license by Nature Scotland. Without a license, capercaillie leks could not be visited or should not be visited at all during this breeding period. It is a critical period. Nesting females or hens with broods, may be present between May right the way through to August, and a disturbed hen could abandon her nest and altogether leave her family and become separated, exposing them to increased risk of predation, chilling them in bad weather, or colliding with fences as they take off in a frantic flight, a bit like a dimorphodon. So, given the vulnerability of this species and the recent decline in their numbers, the advice generally is to not go looking for capercaillie, which is sad because it's a species that a lot of people would love to go and see, I know, but a lot of people would do a lot of damage.
But it makes sense.
Saying that, however, though, you can go walking in some of these forests and national parks. And if you do happen to encounter one, because they do occasionally come out into forest tracks and trails for grit or to drink from puddles that quite often form at the side of tracks, if there's been a vehicle that's gone through there. If you do encounter one of the birds whilst this is happening, remain still and observe them quietly, letting them basically go where they want and move off by themselves. If you start moving towards them or going off the trail to go and bother them, you are, anywhere between now and August, committing an offence. So, leave them alone, basically. Sometimes, because of this, they can show atypical behaviour, losing their fear of people, especially the males at this time of the year. They are very much in that sort of aggressive mode. Hence why David Attenborough got floored by that one. So vehicles and dogs, they will even display at and show very little fear, which is not a good thing for a bird like this. So these birds can seem like a good viewing opportunity. And, I definitely want to go and see them. But they can then obviously draw in a lot more bird watchers and photographers, which can cause undue stress to these birds that may be frightened and fly off, injure themselves, or leave the chicks and never come back. So it is not worth the hassle for this very, very rare bird. If you're aware of people acting irresponsibly and causing disturbances to capercaillie, then you should report it straight away to the Wildlife Crimes Officer by calling Police Scotland on 101 to basically make sure that they are not, committing a crime, really, because they are. But this is a bird that, like I say, and I've said many points in this, that I would love to see. I've thankfully been able to tick off a lot of birds on my list over the years. The most recent one I would say is the European, not the European, is the red-billed chough or the common chough, which is a favourite of mine, which will feature later in this year for various different reasons. I'll explain when we get to that one. But there it is for the moment, the capercaillie, a stunning bird that needs our help by basically not going anywhere near it.
Yeah.
So it'd be interesting to know for any of our European listeners and watchers, have you seen one? Are they more common with you? Let us know. So yeah.
Yeah.
Should we head into our emails for this week?
Yeah.
Bing! You've got mail. Ooh, it's an email. Right, well, we're into our emails for this week, and starting things off is our animal matchup. We have the results of who won out of the narwhal and the pine marten.
We certainly do.
And I don't know. I'm a little disappointed because the narwhal won that one. So that means our final four going through are narwhal, Hawaiian stilt owl, Dinosaurs, and Wisent.
Oh wow!
It's an odd combination of animals that have made it through. So, two extinct dinosaurs, basically, versus two living mammals. So it's extinct versus extant, realistically.
Are we doing the semi-finals simultaneously, or is one going this week?
One going this week, one going next week, and then we'll have the grand final as to who's going to go through. So the first semi-final to basically make it to that final two is Dinosaurs versus Wisent.
Okay.
So who's your pick on this one?
Don't suppose you have got the artwork there. That's actually a difficult one. The last one that I think Wisent went up against was more colourful.
Well, I will say this now. We've come down to some quite drab colours, I will say, compared to what we had previously, where we had neon tetras, chameleons, parrots.
I'm gonna have to go. I am gonna go with Wyson. I think the Wyson artwork looks moderate. I wouldn't say a lot better, and I wouldn't say a little bit better. I'd say moderately better than
Okay.
Kairos.
Well, can you guess what? I'm going to go Dinocaurus on this one.
Didn't you want the Dinosaurs to lose last year?
I did, but I'm now invested in it, and you know what? I'm going to make my prediction is I think it will win. It's Dinocaurus all the way for me now. It is the best out of the four possible choices in my mind.
Okay, the best out of the four.
I think it's the best out of all four. Yeah,
I think the Narwhal is the best out of the four. For the patterns alone on it.
I personally think that will be the final. I think it will be Dinocaurus, Narwhal final.
Well, that's a prediction. I think it will be. Yeah, I think it's going to be Dinocaurus Narwhal too. But I'm voting for Wyson, and I'm hoping my fellow cupboard dwellers will too.
No, we need that horrible hand Canadian goose dinosaur to do it. So there you go. You can make your choice in the comments down below in this video. You can also obviously go and do that on our Facebook page where that is up for you to basically make your decision. So yes, that is what we're doing with that one this week. Yes, that's what I was saying. Yeah. So moving swiftly on, Erin, do we have any interactions from out there in the wide world of the internet?
We do. We'll start with the YouTube comment because it's relevant to the question of the week. It comes to us from Rosalie9961, and they have very kindly written into us to say, I'm going with the Winter Warrior that is the Narwhal. I like Winter Warrior. That's cool. Not as much as Jedi of the Sea, though.
Yeah, that sounds a bit better.
Yeah, I'm going with the Winter Warrior that is the Narwhal. Truly interested in shy animals that have been shrouded in lots of myth and lore. Also, lightly related to all that, the fact that we've only recently, I think it was like 3 weeks ago at this point, gotten more information on what their tusk is used for. It is incredible.
You were talking about that a couple of weeks ago.
It was, yeah. There's always something to learn in this world. Also, lots of conversation. I had originally written conversation. Oh, originally written conservation. Got very confused for about 10 minutes. Provoking stuff brought up at the beginning of the episode. I originally was going to throw my hat into the conversation ring. However, I don't want to chew your and everyone's ears off too much. Also, side note to this long comment, sorry. Call it silly, but I do kind of enjoy leaving these heaping messages. In my head, it helps create a sense of community. And as someone who used to never comment online, you guys have helped me out of my shell through your great content.
Oh, well. Glad to assist.
Yeah, and also, can I just jump off on something you said there? Creating a sense of community. That is something that we've said, and I've banged on about quite a bit from the very start. The more comments, and it was really nice at one point. We had more people. It was now we're doing because we're in the middle of this battle royale of species. There's not so much going on.
No. It's when died down comment-wise.
Questions. There were a lot of our followers were commenting to each other, but people that didn't know each other, and that's really nice. I really like that. I really do like that sense of community. It would be nice to build a community out of this.
I'll set you. I did think in my head whilst doing this week's creature feature episode, and like I say, started off by talking about the top 5 birds that I want to see, and I felt it's annoying that obviously we're doing the sort of creature matchup at the moment. But a side quest for you, if you wish to basically throw this in the comments, let us know what your top 5 birds are that you want to go and see, and I think we'll make that a future question as well, so you can back that up. But wherever you are in the world, what's your top 5 birds that you are dying to see?
Yeah, and please keep your heaping comments coming in because we really enjoy reading them. They're always colourful. The way you've written them is always colourful. In a good way. I don't mean colourful in like a lots of. I'm not here like just so everybody else knows. I'm not here like censoring her cuss words. It's just very. It's nice language that's being used. It's very descriptive in that sense, and also we just like the interaction. So yeah, please keep these comments coming in. Doesn't matter how long they are. So moving on, we're gonna tackle a couple emails now. The first ones come to us from our Patreon supporter, Jen Greenhall, Patreon supporter and long-term listener. She's been with us pretty much since the start, I think. Now she has sent us in an article which we're going to look into, but she says she doesn't know if it's true. Wonder if you guys have heard about this. And what she's done is she sent in this article, Gareth. It's not an article. It's a Facebook post on Better News that says, thanks to a mystery donor, Scottish Wildlife Trust has been able to buy Inverbroom, an enormous estate in the Highlands. The estate covers 7,618 hectares, bigger than the city of Dundee. Plans for the estate include regenerating river, woodland, and temperate rainforest habitats, providing homes for creatures such as wood warblers and pine martins. Info from Positive
Maybe even
News.
capercaillies.
Maybe. Now, I'm not going to go and say this is definitely true, but I do think, Jen, that I have heard this. So I'm gonna just in the background between now and next week, I'm gonna just kind of
Double check.
and then I'll confirm it with you next week. So thank you for sending that in.
Well, that could be your news article for next week.
It could be, yeah. If as long as it's not too well, actually, I have done an article that was 6 months out of date once by accident. But yeah, yeah, I'll have a look into that for you.
Hmm.
And she sent in another one, just to bring us up to speed on something. She says, "Oh look, Mark Whitten, New Scientist Live 2025. It's the Sunday with Chris Packham and Helen Chersky. I normally go on a Saturday. This is to New Scientist Live. She means,
Lucky.
yeah. But it will be a Sunday this year, I think. Just hope the early bird tickets are reasonably priced. Also, thanks for answering my question, re-stimulation enrichment. It made me realise how we train and manage our horses to not exhibit any natural behaviours if it is in conflict with what we as readers, as riders.
Reading with your horse, yeah.
We as riders.
Problem with horses is they can't turn the pages.
Also, she says that she enjoyed what I was talking about with the
Leopards?
enclosure up at Highlands Wildlife Park where they circle.
Get yourself some leopards then.
Yeah, cycle your leopards and your horses around.
I'm sure the students will love that.
Crikey, can you imagine? Yeah. Very interesting. And yeah, I actually really like the Highlands Wildlife Park. It's probably my favourite collection in the UK, I think. And I think they do a lot of interesting stuff up there. Well worth a visit. And if you can, it's well worth a visit and well worth grabbing a member of staff and talking to them about what they do there. Because I think I will sing Highland Wildlife's praises for a long time, I think. So thanks for those two emails, Jen. We're going to move on now to this one. This one comes to us from Big Pumba, Shane Gowers. I'm going to apologise because this one actually came in to us in time for last week, but we had quite a big email to go through, so we've had to postpone it to this week. But I hope you'll forgive us. So it says, "Hey guys, Big Pumba here. I still love that nickname. I hope you're well. In answer to the critter brawl that's been going on, I'm going to have to say I vote for the Smiley Boy. I can't spell the name and won't attempt to. He means Phylacosmilus.
Yeah. I didn't know where he was going with that, but yeah, fair enough.
Purely because, as much as I love Dinosaurs, the oversized mallard is not as cool. Is not a cool marsupial with knife teeth. Convergent evolution wins in my book. Very good. My question for you guys. I don't know what you guys' opinion is on speculative evolution.
Oh, I love a bit of speculative evolution.
I like it as well. But I find it truly fascinating. I've got several books on the topic.
Best ones are Dougal Dixon's Life After Dinosaurs, Life After Man, and Man After Man.
Their TV series is based on one.
Yeah, there's a few of them.
Here's a scenario: humans have vanished, gone in the blink of an eye. So
Thanos.
Bloody
Thanos.
Which, small tangent, useless villain. Very IQ of about 2. Well, you got all these stones that can alter reality, and your first reaction is get rid of half a life, not double or triple or quadruple the resources. Silly bloke. Which one animal from each mammal, bird, invert, and fish do you think would form the next dominant species, and why? You don't have to answer for each animal group if you don't have the time. Something cool, and maybe open it up to the rest of the community. Thanks for reading last week's comment about hominids in zoos. I agree with all your points and hope I didn't sour the mood of the pod too much. The chimp story was great too. Have a great day. Kindest regards, Big Pumba. Thank you very much for your email, Big Pumba. I think firstly, you didn't sour
No.
the tone of the podcast or the mood of the podcast.
No, we're rather good at doing that.
Yeah, we're good at doing that. But it was actually a really, really good question that we enjoyed answering. But to answer your next question, and I think, you know what, if we do, once we're out of this critter brawl, do your 5 birds question, then this could be the second question after that.
Well, I think we should at least pose one of them for the moment.
Yeah.
So I love speculative evolution to the point where, and you may be aware of this, I may have talked to you about it at some point, but your comment the other week of there's never a good time about starting a book.
Never a bad time. Never a good time.
Start writing a book
because someone asked about doing the book. Yeah.
So underneath,
that was Rosalie that asked about the book.
Underneath a pile of a variety of other things, on my bookcase at home, is a book that I started writing, many years ago, about speculative evolution.
Oh, cool!
On Mars, of all things. Basically, the premise being, Martian wildlife, that sort of thing, in a very basic thing, but coming up with an entire family tree of speculative creatures. It all came about a weird way. After having a massive argument with my dad and my brother, I decided to, because I was at my parents' place, and I decided I'm going home, and got in the car and drove home. And on the drive, amongst a variety of other feeling sort of angry, I thought of this weird creature in my head of a frog and a bat together.
Oh, that sounds cool. Yeah.
So essentially what it was a frog-like creature that could fly using its back legs. That then sparked this whole idea in my head at the time of imagine a whole alien planet of frog-like being creatures, and then it sort of changed a bit to
this is
Mars.
Bucky O'Hare.
Well, it was sort of Martian.
The Toad empire, didn't they?
Basically, it took on a bit of inspiration from, say, books like Dougal Dixon's Life After the Dinosaurs, and various things like that. To the point where I have written a manuscript of sorts. I just never went anywhere with it. So it's there somewhere. So I do enjoy speculative evolution. When it comes to what species I think would be dominant. I don't think I could pick any one species that would be the next human, effectively. But I've always liked the thought of gulls. Now, they're a big bird, and they're predatory, and they're intelligent. If you remove humans, I would like to think that there's going to be a population crash of them, because they wouldn't have as much easy obtainable food. But I'd also like to think that because they are one of those species that would probably follow through with humans, if we continue the way we are and trashing the planet, there'll be one of a select few species that will make it through because they rely on us. Now, if you get to a point where the humans have disappeared and the remaining species are things like rats, mice, probably rabbits, animals that are capable of living around humans and gaining things from us, you've then got to establish, large predators again. I could see, and in my head, I could see gulls becoming the dominant predatory species and evolving into, I'd like to think, in my head, is sort of terror bird-sized gulls that roam around eating enlarged species of rabbit or rat or something like that, sort of flightless gulls that basically predate things with intelligence as well, because they are an intelligent bird. That would be where I'd like to see some sort of speculative evolution. I think maybe I should even try and draw that and throw it in for you to put into this bit.
For me, I find it a little bit difficult to think, but of this kind of thing, on the spot like this. But my gut reaction is that I think there's a couple different types of dominance in terms of survival. So if we go down the lines of like two things have happened. Like in one case, you've got the Thanos snap, in which case we're completely wiped out. But a lot of our infrastructure is there to corrode slowly over time. I feel that you could certainly end up with your Gullsaurus,
super gull, the predator gull.
Yeah. However, if it went via nuclear war and you have a lot of that radiation,
are you going the fallout route?
I feel that a bird is more likely to be, I wouldn't say dominant, but certainly enjoy a population explosion. Would be one of those small birds that already burrow in nests, and that nest burrowing activity would be adapted into. And I've seen this on a TV program. It was a theory, and I not a theory, but it was like an idea put forth. And
are you going with the
bird
finch?
That burrows.
Yeah, that was a series, The Future is Wild, that was based off Dougal Dixon's books.
Right, okay. I know I've seen it on TV somewhere, but I really like that concept. In that respect, instead of a bird becoming the predator, I actually see rats becoming the big predator. In that respect.
Large predatory rats.
Yeah.
That's also, and I hate to say it, like, The Simpsons did it, but Dougal Dixon did it. He had like rats that were like greyhound-sized predatory rats chasing down deer-sized rabbits. Because that same sort of thought of, you've got to take the animals that would be most likely to survive. Tigers are probably not going to be around in that scenario.
The in terms of inverts, I don't see much big change there. However, I would say that in the immediate fallout possibly for the next few centuries, your dominant species is going to be cockroaches.
Not in the UK, it's not.
No, but elsewhere you're going to have them basically taking advantage of the corroding of what's left of our infrastructure and our carcasses.
You're not going to have rad roaches or anything anytime soon.
No, I don't foresee them like being like a one that grows in size either. I think they pretty much stay the same size.
Well, the square cubed law kind of defines that. But it's a really fascinating field and a really fascinating question, which I think we will come back to, because I think we could, like I say, use this as a question to put out to you guys of, send us your drawings of a speculative evolution of an animal. That'd be really cool. We could do an art corner.
Smiler rat.
All right, you draw your smiler rat and put it up, and I'll draw my predator gull.
Okay.
And we'll see. Yeah, we'll see what you think. Oh,
we could get people to vote on that as the bonus animal for the special guest referee of this Royal Rumble.
There you go. That connects to Primeval as well, because they had the future predator in that.
Oh yeah.
Which was it was a bat like thing in the future.
Bats are a good one. Good shout.
And that was another Dougal Dixon one. Sorry, he's basically the Simpsons on this. He did it first. So yeah. Well, that's one of many things that you can obviously ask us, and you can do that via our Facebook page. You could also do that via the YouTube comments, and of course on our emails, which is thenathistorykcupboard@gmail.com. One other way that you can get in contact with us is by becoming a Patreon and helping the channel out directly, which these wonderful people are our Patreons, which we will talk about now.
Every week, we like to give a little love back by shouting out the names of our wonderful Patreon supporters.
That's right. These are the cupboard dwellers who are kind enough to support us through a monetary contribution, for which we are eternally grateful and grateful beyond words.
And those people are, of course, Fogtober, Jen Greenhall, Connie P, Chelsea McKee, Nick to Nick, Owen Cox, and Matt Geddy.
Guys, your financial contributions are actively helping us out here in the Natural History Cupboard in a myriad of ways, including developing our new studio, planning excursions and being able to go out and film on location, considering technical upgrades, and actually making the jump from a solely audio-based podcast to the now growing YouTube channel. And we really can't thank you enough for that.
Now, we appreciate all of our cupboard dwellers and the support you offer us through listening, liking, sharing, and subscribing. But if you feel we've earned it and you're considering joining our Patreon, there are two options through which you can do so.
That's the Nature Nerds and the Animal Ambassador tiers, which you can find on the Patreon website or links through our social media as well, and each one having different benefits for you to enjoy.
And now back to Gareth and Erin in the studio.
So yes, a massive thank you to our Patreons there, and all the fantastic help that they give us every single week. So that pretty much brings us to the end of this week's episode, Aaron.
It does.
Yeah. So massive thank you for coming along.
Yeah.
I can say I can't wait to see your, what do you call it, a smiler
A
rat.
smiler rat.
A smiler rat.
Come up with a better name for it, though.
That's fine. I'll have to see if I can find a picture of me frog bat as well. I'll include that in there as well. But yeah,
The frat.
I'll show you some of the drawings.
Yeah, please.
So yeah. So a massive thank you to you at home for joining us, and we'll see you next time here in the Natural History Cupboard. Bye.
Bye.
Okay, so I've got the closest to a grouse
Okay.
joke that I can give you. It's unfortunately to do with people grouse shooting,
Right. Okay.
but I do think it's worth doing. So two grouse hunters are out on a moor in Scotland, both with
Tops.
okay, yeah, 12 gauges under their arms, tweed to the nines. As they're both standing there watching for birds to blow out of the air, one of them all of a sudden falls to the ground, convulsing, turns a rather pale shade, and just sort of falls silent. The other one, panicked, calls 999, and basically they respond, "What service do you require?" "Oh, ambulance. You might need a helicopter. My friend has had a rather funny turn." Sorry, should I be doing like Toff voices for this?
Yeah.
Then the 999 operator, "Can you give us some more information, please?" "Yes, I think he's dead." 999, "What do you mean he's dead?" "Well, he's got a funny colour, and he's not breathing, and he's not moving. I can't feel a pulse. Probably his heart, I think." 999 operator, "I'm afraid he might be dead, but it's vital we know if he's dead. Or alive. Sorry, but it's vital that we know he's either dead or alive, so we can respond appropriately. Please, can you check him out again and make sure that he's absolutely dead?" Longish sort of silence as the phone's put down, some sort of shuffling sounds, and then all of a sudden, two loud bangs.
I knew that was coming.
Sportsman comes back on. "Yes, I've made sure he's absolutely dead." In the distance, two grouse sit there laughing, going, yeah, there you go.